Chapter 956. Discussing the details. Lu Hao decisively pointed out Yi Chu. The other team captains didn't have much of a reaction. They sipped on their tea, peeled their tangerines, or peeled their bananas. Yi Chu was the main culprit. Lu Hao wasn't wrong. It was just supposed to be fighting some bosses. How could that be any burden for pro players? Competing against one another? That didn't need to be as intense as competing in a match. However, Yi Chu's existence changed everything. Happy went all out fighting these pro players. Even worse, they never stopped. What's more, both sides were supported by their guild, so even if they wanted to die, it wouldn't be easy. It was easy to imagine how exhausting such non-stop intensive fighting was. Then, they had to play in a high-level match, which didn't allow for even the slightest bit of negligence. How could they not keep making mistakes? Everyone understood this reasoning. However, none of the team captains uttered a word, mainly because they didn't want to increase Yi Chu's might. They were also thinking of ways to deal with Happy causing trouble. Only Lu Hao directly said it because of his personal grudge towards Yi Chu. Feng Xianjun saw everyone's reaction and knew what was going on. Today's meeting was mainly towards these team captains. As for the managers, playing in matches and snatching bosses weren't their responsibilities. What they said about the players' conditions and whatnot didn't count. Haha, Yi Chu, no one is a stranger to this name, Feng Xianjun said. Since everyone's so familiar with him, I'll put it bluntly. I understand everyone's feelings towards Yi Chu. Wenking, you and Yi Chu have been rivals for many years. He's already retired. You still won't let it go? Feng Xianjun smiled in Han Wenking's direction. Jiaxi, you almost built a new dynasty like Yi Chu. Are you perhaps a bit unwilling to accept that your legacy cannot compare to Yi Chu's? Feng Xianjun looked towards Tiny Herbs Wang Jiaxi. Wenzhou, Li Zan, Yangshu. You three are from the golden generation. How could you guys claim the world belongs to the young under Yi Chu's oppression? Haha, you guys aren't too happy with him either, no? Feng Xianjun looked towards these three team captains. As for you others, perhaps you've been oppressed by Yi Chu too? Or perhaps when you come out with your proud accomplishments, someone always splashes a bucket of cold water on you and compares your accomplishments to Yi Chu's, so you're also not accepting of him either. I know all that, Feng Xianjun smiled. These team captains were smarter than a majority of normal players. When they first heard Feng Xianjun call out their names, they were startled, but when he finished speaking, they suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Feng Xianjun was implying that when they came across Yi Chu, they were unable to put down their past grievances and refused to let Yi Chu go. But it was in fact the opposite. Everyone was focused on snatching bosses, but it was Yi Chu and his team that refused to stop bothering them. Chairman, you've reversed the main relationship. We're the ones on the defensive. The team captains looked at one another. Lu Hao once again rushed out excitedly, why don't we ally together? If we see Yi Chu, we first get rid of them before doing anything else? Feng Xianjun heard his suggestion and was truly angry. F***ck, didn't I just say all of that to advise you guys not to split your attention when you see Yi Chu? Good, good. You even want everyone to split their attention together and make trouble for me, is that it? Feng Xianjun glared at Lu Hao, but Lu Hao was so excited that he didn't notice. He was even looking at everyone expectantly. Seeing how the team captains appeared to be in deep thought, Feng Xianjun was truly afraid that they would ally together to go hunt Yi Chu down. If that happened, was there still going to be a league? We might as well just organize the players to go to the game and watch you guys chase him down. Ahem, Feng Xianjun cleared his throat and got everyone's attention. What I have to say is very simple. We're under special circumstances right now. Everyone needs to put some effort into the game. We all understand that. It's one of the selling points and features of the Glory Alliance. However, everyone needs to focus when they're in the game. Don't let your personal feelings interfere with proper business. It wouldn't be good if it affected your matches in the league. This time of year is when everyone needs to perform at their best. Feng Xianjun's final words weren't wrong. This season, all of the teams appeared very ambitious, allowing such an exciting season to form. If the teams wanted good placings, the matches would naturally be more fun to watch, and the alliance's growth would be more powerful too. This was why Feng Xianjun was worried of a minor problem growing out of control. The problem is that this isn't the current situation. This time, the team captains didn't stay silent. The first to speak was Team Blue Rain's Yu Wenzhou. Chairman, we all understand what you're saying. We aren't that unprofessional, Wang Jiexi said. Right now, it's Yi Chu who's taking the initiative to make trouble for us, Han Wenqing said. As a result, we aren't able to concentrate on the bosses. We have to split our attention to face them, Team 100 Blossoms Yu Feng said. It was easy to see that he had been deeply affected by it. Everyone would thank the heavens if he didn't give us trouble. Who wants to provoke him? Team Misty's Chu Yongshu said. Last time, our team's Li Xuan hadn't even left the city yet and he was killed by Yi Chu's group, Team Void's Li Zan said unhappily. He did prove a rumor though, Happy had killed a character, who was suspected to be a pro player. It turns out that it really was a pro player. It doesn't seem like he's here to snatch bosses. It seems like he's deliberately looking for trouble, Team Wind Howl's Tang Hao said. He's specifically targeting pro players, Team 301's Yang Kong said. Yeah, Team Samsara's Zhou Zakai. Let's ally together and get rid of him, Lu Hao immediately suggested, but this time, he saw the chairman glare at him. Lu Hao thought he had been seen through by the chairman. He instantly shrunk back and didn't dare let out a peep. What is this Yi Chu doing? Feng Xianjun seemed to be talking to himself, but everyone still heard him. Bothering us and diverting our attention is convenient for his group. Wang Jiexi replied. Everyone nodded their heads, looking at it from a tactical perspective for snatching bosses. It had been a month, and the team still hadn't figured out that Yi Shu was actually bringing his team to get experience from them. After all, from a tactical perspective for snatching bosses, Happy's behavior was very logical, so no one was imaginative enough to think about it from another perspective. They all thought Yi Shu's actions were appropriate. It was just that his appropriate actions were harming them. His Happy was still playing leisurely in the Challenger League. They had plenty of energy and time. On the other hand, the other pro teams still needed to maintain their peak conditions to face their upcoming matches. But every week, they needed to waste so much of their energy on snatching bosses. How could the quality of the matches not go down? The one comfort was that it was everyone who fell, not just one team. As a result, even though the quality of the matches this month decreased, it didn't really affect the placings in the alliance. The pro players only cared about their placings. They didn't care too much about the alliance's growth or whatever, so even though they were all grumbling about Yi Chu, in reality, they weren't nearly as worried as Feng Xianjun. It was everyone playing poorly, so who cares? Ban his account. The alliance doesn't have that sort of authority, does it? Remove their qualifications for the Challenger League. That way they can't fight back. Yeah, that's good. Remove them. As a matter of fact, the team captains were even in the mood to joke around. It truly made Feng Xianjun burn with anxiety. The alliance obviously had the power to remove their qualifications for the Challenger League, but they couldn't just randomly abuse it. They had to follow the rules, no? They didn't have a proper reason to remove Happy's qualifications. How could the team captains not understand that? As a result, they were just messing around. Those guys sounded all depressed, but in reality, no one was taking it seriously. Honestly, I feel like Lu Hao's suggestion could be one solution, Yu Wenzhou suddenly said. Feng Xianjun was startled. Why are you also making trouble for me? Most players wouldn't consider things from a manager's perspective, but Feng Xianjun didn't think Yu Wenzhou was that type of player. In his eyes, Yu Wenzhou was a talent that could join the alliance's management level after retiring as a pro player. Why did he make this kind of suggestion? At this moment, Yu Wenzhou continued, everyone knows how many people are in Yi Chu's team, right? 10, Wang Jiexi said. You count that one, Han Wenqing said. Are you talking about chasing Haze? Wang Jiexi said. Everyone was clearly someone who fully understood the matter. They even knew the names of everyone in Team Happy. Chasing Haze is weak, but if you draw the line with her, then there are a few other ordinary ones among them, Wang Jiexi said. Little Cold Hands? Concealed Light? The captains of the alliance's top teams could already name everyone in Team Happy. These were just the rather weak ones in Team Happy, yet they were still very familiar with them. It doesn't matter if they're strong or weak. In any case, my suggestion is that the next time we hunt for bosses, everyone be on the lookout for them. We'll take the initiative to send out a few players to form a team and specifically contest against them. They want to fight with us, so we might as well fight with them. If we have people specifically to deal with them, then we won't need to worry about wasting too much of our energy. The others can then focus on the boss. The faster we finish, the earlier we can leave. What do you think, everyone? ? Yu Wenzhou said to everyone, but his eyes were still focused on Feng Xianjun. Feng Xianjun let out a sigh of relief. He nodded his head with a smile. This Yu Wenzhou truly was a talent. This method was one move, two gains. With each one having a specific goal, they wouldn't be splitting their attention. It was an excellent idea. Yes, I think Yu Wenzhou's solution is good. Feng Xianjun approved and immediately supported it. He didn't wait for everyone's response and first declared his position. If the chairman approved, then everyone had to give him face. What's more, Yu Wenzhou's solution was truly a good one. Soon afterwards, everyone discussed the details. Lu Hao was the most fervent and he actively came up with many plans. You punk, are you planning on destroying Happy? Who would have thought that even after leaving Excellent Era, you still care about them so much? Li Zan suddenly said. What are you talking about? Lu Hao panicked slightly. He really wanted to destroy Happy, but he definitely had no intentions of helping Excellent Era. It would be wonderful if Excellent Era could be destroyed too. He still needed to hide his personal feelings though. Do you guys really think that this team can threaten Excellent Era? Haha, who can say? All of the team captains smiled. Chapter 957. League Influence. It was a good thing that the conference had started feeling like a tea party because the atmosphere became more and more relaxed. Chairman Feng Xianjun became more at ease and couldn't help but give a bit of encouragement to every team. Of course, he didn't care whether the team was the current first-place Tyranny or the 10th-place Thunderclap. As the chairman of the Glory Professional Alliance, he had to treat everyone equally. If he showed even a little bit of favoritism, it would be hard to avoid being trapped by people making a fuss. Soon afterwards, the managers and captains of various clubs all thought about what had happened. This meeting had been resolved with just a few words from Yu Wenzhou, succinctly offering a resolution. Everyone had been called in from distant areas, when in fact just communicating over QQ for a bit could have led to this idea. It seemed that the chairman had indeed been very nervous. Only, the big club teams hadn't thought of the fact that the explosion of mistakes in February had been reported on by the media. But despite the discontent from the pro players, the number of players in the Glory Heavenly domain was actually rapidly increasing. Why? Just going online to the Heavenly domain and taking a look would give the answer. In the global chat, everyone was asking where the boss fights were. Everyone wanted to witness pro players battling at a close distance, especially the popular gods, whose whereabouts were directly asked for by players. For a short while, this kind of enthusiasm from the players covered up quite a bit of the discontent caused by the poor competition quality. But the alliance didn't dare neglect what was happening. Feng Xianjun was even worried that the large clubs, seeing this reaction from the players, would take the situation even less seriously. He personally called each of them on the phone, repeatedly warning them to be careful and protect the current state of affairs. How to cope with the players' enthusiasm? Each club sent specialists to deal with the enthusiasm of the players. At the same time, Yu Wenzhou's proposal was also decisively put into practice. Thus, the new week began. For every level 75 wild boss that spawned, all the teams once again used their power to gather players together. When Yishu began to search the guilds for pro players, he was astonished to discover that a group of troops had directly appeared in front of Team Happy. This group of players had mixed names and tags, coming from 9 different guilds. At this very moment, however, they resolutely stood together. Before Yishu could figure out what was going on and react, these 9 players actually took the initiative to begin fighting. Exchanging blows, Happy was caught by surprise and put in a bad position. But after they reacted, Yishu was wild with joy. These pros were really too reliable. Knowing that we were looking for them to train, they now specifically dispatched people to form a group specifically to PK. This was simply too considerate in every way. After coming to an understanding, all of Happy's members felt very moved, to the point that they were reluctant to fight back against these 9. However, these 9 weren't polite at all in their attacks, looking like they wanted to quickly send Team Happy back to the city. But although these two teams appeared to be fighting against each other alone, in reality, they were both backed up by guild troops. With that much healing, even if they wanted to die, it would really be quite difficult for them to do so. As a result, the two sides could only exchange blows to kill time until the boss was killed. In this way, the conclusion was unexpectedly joyous for everyone. Every pro team finally thought that Happy had stopped being a nuisance. Happy, on the other hand, would no longer have to use every means possible to get close to and harass those pro players, who were using every means possible to avoid them. Now, everyone lined up in an orderly manner in front of them, volunteering to fight. This is good news. Yi Shu was happy to the point where he couldn't keep quiet. The professional teams continued to do this time after time, fighting Happy again and again and hunting bosses one after another. This saved them quite a bit of energy. On Happy's side, Yi Shu and the rest could also focus on fighting pro players hand to hand, not having to randomly run around like in the past. The effectiveness of their training naturally increased as well. Previously, Happy had trained every other day. But seeing this happy occasion, they couldn't bring themselves to give it up. They would just need to train a bit harder. Even pro players couldn't have this kind of training method. Their competition training would at best involve dividing the team into two groups to fight 5v5, practicing with a few fixed strategies. With the same few opponents every time, they wouldn't be able to break away from their familiarity with their teammates. But now, because the teams in the alliance rotated the players that they sent to fight Wild Boss, the players Team Happy faced also rotated every day. In this way, it was as if the pro players were coming out one by one to specially train with them. This was a unique way of refining their skills and accumulating experience. They also an opportunity to better understand future opponents. Even in the Pro Alliance, if the two teams didn't face one another in the playoffs, they would at most fight on stage twice. This kind of first-hand fighting experience wasn't as common as most people thought. Happy could finally face pro players in combat without any distractions. Pro players could finally stop trying to do two things at once. Both sides were content with the present arrangement. This went on for many days. Happy appeared as if they couldn't break through the pro players' formation, but they continued to persevere in their attempts. All the clubs felt conflicted, hoping that Happy would finally retreat, but they also afraid that after retreating Yi Chu would also think up some new evil idea. After weighing the pros and cons, they decided that just continuing the status quo might be for the better. In a flash, March had passed. This month the Alliance didn't dare look up the numbers only after the end of month competitions. They closely followed the whole trail of statistics throughout the month. There was still a higher than average number of mistakes, but it wasn't anything like the weird explosion that had happened in February. Rather, it returned to a consistent level. Feng Xianjun finally let go of his worries. He couldn't stop himself from calling up each of the teams to give more encouragement and praise, while calling for the other teams to watch and learn. The other teams appeared to not be affected too much, but their strength was weak to begin with. They already made more mistakes on average than the other teams. They were not that competitive in these boss fights either, so it wasn't easy to be affected by this. There was an even more important reason though. This time within these other teams, Heavenly Justice, Conquering Clouds, Parade, and Radiant, were in an alliance with Happy. Yi Shu's group had decided to make increasing their skill level a priority, but it wasn't like they could attack their allies, right? That would obviously break up the alliance between these guilds. This was a safeguard for materials when fighting for a boss, so they wouldn't break it up for now. As a result, these teams weren't affected in the slightest, ensuring that the data for the other teams became worse. And in the process of fighting for Wild Boss, these pro players could also continue fighting together. This allowed them to make repeated gains during the boss fights. And in splitting the materials dropped, none of them really took issue with the current method, because as far as they were concerned, Happy's valiant fighting off to the side stalled a lot of the pro players. This was one of the crucial factors in their success. This was also a merit that the players of small teams possessed. Being the disadvantaged group within pro players, they didn't possess any arrogance or self-importance. Thus, they could easily see the value contributed by others. Their frequent displays of strength only magnified Happy's tactics. The large clubs remained unaware that they were being used as Happy's training partners. The alliance management really wasn't easy to deal with. Pro players had to directly come out. From time to time, some temporary alliances would be formed. With this new generation's special background, these temporary alliances were not similar to the usual guild alliances, where the groups turned on one another at the earliest opportunity. After all, pro players all cared quite a bit about their public images. On the other hand, those who played dirty suffered. To the other pro players, these players stabbing them in the back was a certainty, so it was very difficult for these players wanted to make an alliance with others. No matter what, another month of bustling activity passed. This month, in competition skill statistics weren't as strange anymore. However, the team placements after this month were turned upside down. These changes mainly came from the bottom half of the rankings, with Heavenly Justice, Conquering Clouds, Parade, and Radiant in the lead. In reality, these changes had been visible during February. It was just that the difference between strong and weak teams in the alliance was also quite scary. The divide between the top half and the bottom half seemed like a wide ravine. Thus, although the accumulated points had changed during February, the placements remained relatively steady. Everyone simply treated this as a fluctuation, not taking it seriously. It was only in March, when these so-called fluctuations persisted, that everyone discovered that these four teams had improved by leaps and bounds. From their initial positions among the weak, they had drilled their way through the bottom-tier teams, steadily climbing towards the top half. March 30th came, and the fifth round of battles in March finished. Among the four teams, Radiant had actually climbed to 10th place, and Conquering Clouds had reached 11th. The 9th place team, 301 Degrees, was only 3 points ahead of Radiant by 3 points, and 5 points ahead of Conquering Clouds. The original 10th place team, the unexpectedly well-performing Thunderclap, was now kicked to 12th place, with Heavenly Swords and Parade hot on its heels. It looked as if the team's standings could continue to drop at any moment. Based on performance data and points, the abrupt rise of these four teams was due to the fact that they had performed more steadily than other teams in this shaky environment. However, looking one step further, the reason was more obvious. In the online game, these teams were the ones in an alliance with Happy. Happy was happy, but happy was also Yi Chu. Feng Xianjun was speechless. The teams that were in the Challenger League, by means of the competition in-game, actually affected the state of the alliance. If this continued to develop, these four teams might actually have a chance of making the playoffs. Of course, this was something that Feng Xianjun could uneasily say to the teams. Even if he secretly wanted the playoffs to include as many current All-Stars as possible, a competition is still a competition, and first and foremost the competition had to be fair. This kind of thing, he could only hope in his heart. He couldn't just go and underhandedly influence the results. This Yi Chu only creates trouble. I don't know what he's going to do to the Challenger League. Regarding the Challenger League, the Alliance chairman usually cared little about it, only appearing to follow what was happening, but now, he had truly become interested. Chapter 958. Proactive Preparation. Because the competition for materials affected a team's placing in the Alliance, it wouldn't be good for Feng Xianjun to push this matter any further. He could only console himself by saying that it was a feature of the Glory Alliance. In any case, the main offender being Happy made Feng Xianjun's interest towards this year's Challenger League leap. On the 1st of April, the teams participating in the Challenger League received official notifications from the Alliance. The teams would need to report on the weekend of 4/19 and 4/20. The Challenger League's offline tournament would officially start on 4/21. The teams were notified early to make it easier for players to arrange their schedules. After all, apart from pro teams, most players were either studying or working. The Challenger League's offline tournament would last for at least a month. To clear out a schedule for such a long period of time required some work. At Happy, Luo Jian and Wen Yi were still students. However, Yi Shu had told them about it beforehand, so the two had even more time to get ready. Did they request a leave of absence, or were they just going to skip class? Yi Shu didn't ask, but he preferred that they handled it appropriately. Skipping class was very worrying. It could greatly affect a player's condition. In the beginning of April, the pro players were still busy on both ends. Yi Shu's side had dwindled somewhat. Their 2 months of training consisted of fighting with pro players almost every day. How much time they spent fighting these pro players depended on what bosses spawned that day. The pro players would be most active when hunting level 75 wild bosses. Level 70 wild bosses were pretty active too, but pro players would almost never show up for bosses lower than level 70. Apart from that, they often wouldn't show up past midnight or on match days. As a result, Team Happy's sleep schedule started conforming to the sleep schedules of the pro teams. During these 2 months, not only did their skill levels improve immensely, everyone was also in a good mental state. Their equipment had also improved another step. The blueprint for the level 70 upgrade of Lord Grimm's Myriad Manifestations umbrella had been ascertained. The team was only missing a solution for skill books. Their understanding of level 75 materials was also very poor, so Yishu didn't have plans on getting his umbrella to level 75 for the time being. The current Happy didn't have the resources to brute force it by trial and error. Whatever extra materials they had would better be used to create other silver equipment. Right now, it seemed like Soft Mist would be the first besides Lord Grimm and Windward Formation to receive a silver weapon. After all, Yishu's knowledge about battle mages was too deep. Let alone a silver weapon, Soft Mist would have an enormous advantage when developing her other pieces of silver equipment because of Yishu's knowledge base. As for the other classes, even though Yishu was proficient with them, his experience with those classes couldn't compare to his former main class that he had played as for so many years. Silver Spear, Dancing Fire Flowing Flame. Although it hadn't been created yet, the blueprint had already been completely drawn out. Luo Ji had done some calculations and confirmed that there were no mistakes. It just hadn't been created yet because they were missing a few materials. The uncommon material requirements from the normal servers were the most difficult for Happy. They truly didn't have the energy to spare to split their attention and participate in the boss competitions in normal servers. Even though they had trained their guilds in the normal servers to a certain extent, they still couldn't improve so quickly in such a short amount of time. Yishu was prepared to trade for these materials because, despite these being wild boss materials, the club guilds enjoyed a monopoly on these materials in the normal servers. Those game studios were all out of stock. In the end, Yishu could only look for his good friends Conquering Clouds, Radiant, and Parade. These 3 guilds might be relatively small, but it wasn't like they were extremely poor. Seeing how their relationship with each other was good, the 3 guild leaders expressed that they could help out and ask if a trade could be made. The value of uncommon materials wasn't ordinary. A single guild leader didn't have the authority to make a trade on their own. They needed to talk to several departments in their club beforehand. Yishu wasn't in a big hurry. He still had many other things to do. Their recent training routine continued, but it was starting to die down. Everyone was saving energy for the upcoming offline tournament. Before it began, they needed to finish as much as possible in terms of their equipment. Dancing Fire Flowing Flame was only one part of their work so far. Yishu's knowledge wasn't limited to just one weapon. During these 2 months of time, while organizing their materials, Yishu and Wei Chen thought up numerous ideas for silver equipment. Then, they presented these ideas to Luo Ji to check. If their blueprint had been confirmed and there were enough materials, they could immediately create one. If it wasn't for them already creating quite a few pieces of silver equipment, they wouldn't be stuck on creating Dancing Fire Flowing Flame. Most of the 2 million RMB worth of materials from Samsara's trade were mainly from the normal server because Yishu had been clear that his future activities would mainly be based in the heavenly domain. He wouldn't be able to manage their materials problem in the normal server, so he had planned ahead of time. They used bits and pieces of those 2 million RMB worth of materials, so their set of materials gradually became incomplete. The number of missing materials for their silver equipment increased as time went on, but before Dancing Fire Flowing Flame, they had already managed to create 19 pieces of silver equipment. All of them had reached level 70. Along with the Myriad Manifestations umbrella and Death's Hand, if they hadn't gotten anything from when Team Everlasting disbanded, they would have one more piece of silver equipment than Team Heavenly Swords. At Happy, Yishu and Wei Chen came up with their own silver equipment, the Myriad Manifestations umbrella and Death's Hand. When Team Everlasting disbanded, they had purchased 3 pieces of Warlock silver equipment. After a period of time, they had created 19 of their own pieces of silver equipment, bringing their total silver equipment count to 24. Among these, Wei Chen's Windward Formation stood out the most. He had his own silver weapon, and the 3 pieces of silver equipment purchased from Team Everlasting had been for his warlock's use. Later on, he and Yishu researched silver equipment, and just like how Yishu was most familiar with battle mages, Wei Chen was obviously the most familiar with warlocks. Of those 19 silver equipment, 4 of those were for warlocks. Windward Formation currently had 8 silver equipment, far surpassing the average of 5. 23 silver equipment per character in the Alliance. He was almost at the level of the god characters. Team Blue Rain's number 1 warlock, Swaksar, only had 10 silver equipment. It was only 2 more than Windward Formation. But then again, Windward Formation silver equipment were all only level 70. He couldn't compare to Swaksar in that respect. Besides these 4 pieces of warlock equipment, there were also 5 battle mage pieces of equipment among these 19 silver equipment. These 2 classes took up half of the total silver equipment. There were 3 pieces of brawler equipment, 2 pieces of cleric equipment, 2 pieces of ghost blade equipment, 2 pieces of summoner equipment, and 1 piece of ninja equipment. The ninja equipment was for Mo Fan's deception, which made Chen Guo a bit worried. Mo Fan always followed along when they practiced, but because both sides had the support of their guilds, there were very few deaths in battle, so his scrap-picking talent couldn't be fully displayed. His combat experience also improved significantly from fighting pro players though. However, Mo Fan was still as emotionless as ever. Chen Guo could never feel reassured about him. She always felt like one day, Mo Fan would suddenly leave without saying a word. At best, it would be in front of everyone. Chen Guo was worried that giving Mo Fan ninja equipment would result in losing it. Yi Shu was quite imposing though. He didn't hesitate to hand the silver equipment that he made to Mo Fan. Mo Fan was even more imposing. He took it without even saying thanks and directly put it on. Chen Guo couldn't say anything about her displeasure. She really wanted to grasp Mo Fan by the neck to force him to understand, but with Mo Fan's personality, Chen Guo wondered that even if she did it, would she get a response? After these 19 pieces of silver equipment, it was either they didn't any more ideas on how to create any more silver equipment, or that they didn't have enough materials like with dancing fire flowing flame. It would be best if those materials could be traded for as soon as possible. As for coming up with ideas for other silver equipment, Yi Shu and Wei Chen no longer spent as much energy on it. After all, the offline tournament was approaching. The 2 also needed to rest and adjust their mental state. Moreover, compared to Tang Ru, Steamed Bun, and the others, the 2 were old. Keeping up their energy wasn't as easy. Under Yi Shu's experienced control, the day before the offline tournament, Team Happy slowed down their pace. If it was said that Happy had learned like crazy over the past year, then it was finally time for exam day. Before that, they needed to properly digest the accumulated nutrients obtained during this period of time in order to completely display their full potential. 4/5. On the first Saturday of April, a guest came to visit Happy early in the morning. Su Mucheng. Every time Chen Guo met her, the 2 would chat about random things for eternity, but today, when Chen Guo saw her, they only did some small talk before quickly changing into their appropriate attire. Chen Guo knew why Su Mucheng had come today. It was the tomb sweeping day ****. Su Mucheng, Yi Shu, and her would all be going to the same place. When the 3 went out the door, they called a taxi and headed over to Nanshan Public Cemetery. Along the way there, the 3 chatted casually. The mood was neither heavy nor light. "I'll go find you guys later." Just like last year, Chen Guo's destination was slightly closer, so the group split up for now and she went to visit her father first. "See you," Yi Shu and Su Mucheng called out and then headed over towards Su Mukia's grave. "Dad, I'm here." Chen Guo placed fresh flowers in front of the grave, while cleaning up the surroundings. Chen Guo didn't only come once a year during the Qingming festival. She would often come ordinarily. She just didn't tell anyone, that's all. However, Chen Guo was more formal on the Qingming festival. She would be more traditional and explain how her year went to her father. "It's been a busy year. Who would have imagined that our team would actually be formed? I didn't see wrongly. Even though that guy gives me all sorts of mixed feelings, he's truly very reliable. I honestly feel like I haven't helped him at all, but even so, we were still able to create our team. Right now, we're participating in Glory's Challenger League. If we win, then we'll officially become a pro team." Happy. It won't just be an internet cafe anymore. It'll be a professional club. But no one is too optimistic about us because there's a Team Excellent era in this year's Challenger League. Team Excellent era. Did you know? They're our next-door neighbors. I used to be in love with that team. Not anymore though, of course. Because now they're our opponents and because they're not nice. Then again, if they were nice, I would never have this opportunity and I would never have experienced everything I did this past year. I've been very happy, and my life has been filled with things to do. In the last third of the month, we'll be playing in an offline tournament. We have to win, don't you think so? Chen Guo said with a smile. The Qingming Festival is also known as Tomb Sweeping Day. It's a day where people visit the graves and pray to their ancestors. They sweep the tombs of their ancestors and give offerings such as flowers, food, joss paper. There are other traditions often celebrated on this day too, such as going for a walk, planting trees, flying kites, and a bunch of other things. They engage in physical activities so that they don't harm their bodies after the Cold Food Festival, where you're not supposed to eat cooked food 3 days before the Qingming Festival. The origin story comes from the Cold Food Festival. The story, or at least the prince, is pretty stupid in my opinion, but here it is. During the spring and autumn period, Prince Chang'er of the state of Jin endured many hardships while he was exiled from his home state because of the Li Ji unrest. While heading towards the Bidi, only 15 men accompanied him, one being his friend and subject Jia Zitui, or Jia Zitui. Jia Zitui was the only one who followed the prince through his 19 years of hardships, seeing his final ascension to the throne as Duke Wen of Jin. Once, when Chang'er and Jia Zitui passed through the state of Wei, all their provisions were stolen. In order to help the prince who was tormented by hunger, Jia Zitui cut off the flesh from his thigh and offered it to the prince for sustenance. Later, when Chang'er became Duke Wen of Jin, he ordered a search for Jia Zitui, who had gone into hiding in the remote mountains with his mother. Jia Zitui had no political ambitions and felt ashamed to work with his hypocritical fellows, hence refused invitation of the Duke. Duke Wen ordered the mountains to be burned down in order to force Jia out of hiding. However, the fire ended up killing Jia and his mother. Filled with remorse, Duke Wen ordered that each year during these 3 days the setting of fire is forbidden, all food was to be consumed cold. Therefore, the festival is thus named, for. Thus, there exists a Chinese proverb that goes, while one can burn off an entire mountain, others are refrained even to light up to eat their rice, depicting what transpired in the burning of the mountain and the subsequent annual banning of using fire on that day to commemorate. Wiki. Chapter 959. Everything ready. Chen Guo finished talking to her father. Just when she was about to say goodbye and leave, she saw Yi Shu and Su Mucheng returning. They were standing along the side of the path, waiting for her. Ah, that was fast, Chen Guo was surprised. Yi Shu and Su Mucheng chuckled, but didn't say anything. Chen Guo checked the time and was even more surprised, it's already been so long. After looking at the time, she realized that it wasn't that Yi Shu and Su Mucheng had been fast, but are being too slow. Sure enough, it's been an eventful year. Chen Guo turned her head to look at her father's gravestone and mumbled happily to herself. The three immediately headed back and chatted with each other along the way. They were still talking shop the entire time, but when they got to the offline matches, Chen Guo felt a bit awkward because Su Mucheng would be their opponent in these offline matches. It was hard for her to accept. However, seeing how Yi Shu and Su Mucheng were chatting without caution, Chen Guo was very curious how Su Mucheng really felt about the situation. Chen Guo didn't think that Su Mucheng favored Excellent Era even 1%, but if that was the case, how could she be allowed to stand on stage? Chen Guo could already feel how twisted her feelings would be when the time came just thinking about it. In the end, she never asked before the two sides parted. Once the Qingming Festival passed, there were only 2 weeks left. Their request to trade materials with those 3 guilds was finally approved. In addition, the good relationship between Happy and their guilds had spread to their clubs as well. When Happy took the initiative to request a trade, the 3 guilds didn't take the opportunity to raise the price and happily reached an agreement on the trade for materials. Yi Shu used some of their heavenly domain materials to trade for some urgently needed normal server materials. The silver weapon, Dancing Fire Flowing Flame, was immediately crafted. The process went smoothly, and it was successful on the first try. Happy now had 3 level 70 weapons along with the myriad manifestations Umbrella and Death's Hand. Dancing Fire Flowing Flame. Weight 3.3 kilograms. Durability 33. Attack speed 4. Physical attack 920. Magic attack 635. Strength plus 5-7. Attack speed plus 1. Physical critical strike chance plus 12%. Fire attribute damage increase plus 11%. Fire chaser level plus 3. When attacking, there was a 5% chance to inflict a burn. Compared to the current orange weapon held by Soft Mist, Falling Moon Piercing Cloud, Dancing Fire Flowing Flame had slightly higher attack and also had increased strength by 2 points. Apart from that, it was lighter by 0.2 kilograms and had 1 higher attack speed. Weight and durability were directly linked, but in a normal match, 30 durability was more than enough. 33 durability and 35 durability didn't make any difference. However, a lighter weight weapon was a small advantage. A lighter weapon meant that the character's overall weight would be lower, resulting in a slight increase in speed, even if it was a minute 0.2 kilograms difference. But 1 point of attack speed was not a minute difference. A plus 12% increase in physical critical strike chance was the same story. Falling Moon Piercing Cloud had a light attribute, while Dancing Fire Flowing Flame was neutral, but because it increased fire attribute damage by 11%, if it were a fire attribute weapon, it would be a powerful buff, but as of now, the effectiveness of a fire attribute damage increase was rather worthless. The only skills with attributes that a battle mage had were chasers. There was only one type of chaser with a fire attribute too, so this seemingly powerful stat wasn't too useful. Self-made equipment should have this kind of flimsy support stat, but Yishu still crafted it like this, naturally with a plan in mind. The current Dancing Fire Flowing Flame couldn't get a fire attribute, but with Yishu's understanding of level 75 materials so far, he was certain that when it was upgraded to level 75, it would gain a fire attribute. Thus, this fire attribute damage increase of 11% was like a salted fish flipping its body. It would be an extremely formidable stat bonus. It also increased Fire Chaser's level by 3. It was a stat that increased a skill's level. With this type of stat, even if a skill was maxed out on the skill tree, it could still gain these levels. A Fire Chaser could be leveled to 9. With Dancing Fire Flowing Flame, the max level would be 12. Skill points didn't need to be used for those 3 levels either. An extra level in Fire Chaser not only increased its base damage, but it also increased the strength buff received from landing the chaser, so it directly improved the battle mage's overall damage output. A 3-level increase was very good. Finally, it had a 5% chance of producing a burn. Yishu had created this stat, so he obviously knew what it did. He had considered Tangru's playstyle and habits when choosing this bonus effect. When making the choice, Tangru herself offered some ideas before confirming this burn effect. With Dancing Fire Flowing Flame, along with 5 other silver equipment, Soft Mist now had a total of 6 silver equipment. However, One Autumn Leaf was considered Glory's #1 character. Admittedly, some of it had to do with Excellent Era's 3 consecutive championship victories, but it couldn't be refuted that their victories were closely related to One Autumn Leaf's superior fighting strength during that time. One Autumn Leaf claimed that title back then, and after many years, it still remained unshaken, so it was naturally considered the #1 character. Soft Mist currently had 6 silver equipment. She had surpassed the average silver equipment per character in the Alliance, but she was still far from reaching One Autumn Leaf's level. One Autumn Leaf had a total of 12 silver equipment, just one away from a complete set. This had been when Yishu was still around. He didn't know what One Autumn Leaf was like now. After all, every player was different. When Yishu was there, One Autumn Leaf was still missing a badge. It wasn't that Excellent Era couldn't craft a silver badge. It was just that Yishu felt like his current orange badge was more suitable. Right now, One Autumn Leaf's player was now Sun Shang. Perhaps because Sun Shang had different habits, that orange badge had been replaced by a silver one. As for whether One Autumn Leaf had any level 75 pieces of silver equipment, Yishu didn't know. Even if it did, it wouldn't be a lot because when the new update came out, Yishu would specifically target Excellent Era during the wild boss activities. It was taking drastic measures for a desperate situation. The goal was to stop Excellent Era from upgrading their equipment as much as possible during this period of time. This way, Happy could rely on level 75 orange equipment to pull their disparity in equipment closer. From the looks of it, Yishu's strategy was very successful. To Excellent Era, this move was similar to cutting off their food supply. The cleverest housewife cannot cook without rice. No matter how great Excellent Era's R&D team was, without materials, there was nothing they could do. Of course, if Excellent Era threw their money to purchase materials, Yishu had no way of stopping that. Even though level 75 materials were extremely important to teams, the alliance was becoming more and more businesslike. Too many owners sought after money. If they saw a heartbeat raising price, selling their materials wasn't impossible for them. Short-term benefits easily enticed them. If Excellent Era truly chose this path, they would bleed quite a bit, but it would definitely solve their materials drought. The last 2 weeks before the offline matches passed by in a flash. These final 2 weeks were everyone's last opportunities to strengthen themselves, and during these 2 weeks, Happy did not create any new equipment. New equipment would lead to a change in a character's stats. For a high-level competition, this type of change required some time to get used to. Although the Challenger League could not compare to the Pro League, those who could reach the offline matches could not be underestimated. Moreover, the final boss would be a formidable team like Excellent Era. That detail alone was more than enough for them to not be careless. On April 19, Happy boarded a plane to City B, where the Alliance headquarters was located. In the offline matches, all participating teams would gather together in one place. Food, drink, and living quarters were all complimentary via the Alliance. The accommodations were quite nice. As for the stadium, the Alliance had only just begun utilizing projections. The Challenger League clearly didn't have this kind of luxurious arrangement. Everything was in accordance to the previous season. However, rumors said that this year's group stage would be using the new tournament format. If it all went well, it might even be used in the playoffs. Everyone in Happy arrived at City B. Lu Guaning had sent people over to pick them up. It was Saturday today though, and Team Heavenly Swords had a match, so Lu Guaning didn't personally come. Instead, Sun Jeping came. The former number 1 Berserker, as agreed upon, would be helping Team Happy face the Challenge League. These days, even though Sun Jeping was still at Team Heavenly Swords, his another summer of sleep was frequently together with everyone in Happy in the game. They would be playing together in a tournament, so the players needed some time to get used to each other. Sun Jeping had even gone along with Happy to attack pro players, but because of his injury, he couldn't participate in too many of this type of highly intense practice. He was an experienced pro player though. Even with the limited amounts of practice, he easily integrated himself into the team. The Alliance set up check-in places throughout the hotel lobby. When Happy came, they saw many people there. There were 20 teams participating in the offline matches. If each team followed the standard guidelines, there would be at least 200 people. However, most of these teams were player teams. They had reached this step, so they had strength, but they couldn't be compared to a pro team. Nearly half the teams only had 6 players, the minimum requirement. As for Happy, along with Sun Jeping, they had 11 players. This was about standard for a pro team. When they arrived and went to a check-in location, the other players felt like they were very professional. "You guys are," an Alliance staff member went over to welcome them. Before Yishu and the others could reply, someone forced his way through and shouted, Sis Chen, you're here." Everyone in Happy turned their heads and saw that it was esports home City H reporter, Chang Xian. The offline matches had finally come. This young reporter seemed very excited because once the offline matches started, the esports home would give a page specifically about the Challenger League. Usually, the offline matches took place in City H. There were quite a lot of esports home reporters there, so just 2 or so reporters was oftentimes enough. But this season's Challenger League had Team Excellent Era and Team Happy, both teams with many stories. As a result, City H required the reporters from City H to follow these teams. Challenger League teams also having team reporters? Esports Home hesitated when thinking about this treatment, but they also knew that the City H reporters this season were quite lonely. Moreover, Cao Guangcheng was Excellent Era's team reporter, so it was approved in the end. Chapter 960. Special Treatment. Chang Xian had come specifically for Team Happy, but Cao Guangqing wasn't the same. As a well-known reporter in the esports circle, he wouldn't have bothered to come to such an insignificant event if it weren't for Team Excellent Era's presence. So while he might have come along this time, he only came for Team Excellent Era and was completely uninterested in the other teams. There was quite a bit to talk about in regards to Happy. Cao Guangqing was willing to admit that. Yet even then, so what? No matter how hot of a topic they were, being in the Challenger League meant that they still wouldn't garner much attention. More importantly, the topic of Happy had no future, since they were eventually going to be eliminated anyways. Cao Guangqing was more than happy for Chang Xian to not compete with him for Excellent Era, so he encouraged the other to work on his reports on Happy. From Cao Guangqing's perspective, his bitter days this year would finally come to an end with the end of the Challenger League. With their current lineup, Excellent Era would definitely be able to compete for the championship after they return to the Pro League. Speaking of which, Su Mucheng would definitely leave the team after the end of this season. Then, they would be one all-star short, but after returning to the Pro League, Cao Guangqing was certain that Excellent Era would invest more into washing off the blemish of being in the Challenger League for a year. With the two gods Sun Xiang and Xiao Shikan overseeing things, Excellent Era already had incredible competitive ability. If they managed to bring in another god, the new season's Excellent Era would be even more spectacular, creating even more news, and he, as Excellent Era's team reporter, would reach brand new heights. Thinking of this, the awkwardness he had experienced this year suddenly seemed not so terrible. Watching the boisterous round of welcomes as Chang Xian approached Happy, Cao Guangqing gave a sardonic grin. To him, it seemed like one last celebration before leaving for the execution grounds. He didn't bother joining in. Cao Guangqing left after completing the registration for reporters at the reception and obtaining his reporter's pass. He didn't linger because he knew Excellent Era wouldn't come here. For the arrangements of the Challenger League, all the teams would be treated the same, even Excellent Era. However, since Excellent Era was an old powerhouse, it was awkward enough for them that they were even in the Challenger League in the first place. There was no way they would want to stay with these grassroots teams to mingle, so they refused the alliance's arrangements, preferring to pay out of pocket and find another place to stay. As for Cao Guangqing, he was a reporter, so the alliance wouldn't have made arrangements for him anyways. He had to take care of his own food and board. He felt like he was a cut above all of these others, so he didn't bother lingering to mingle either, booking a room in the hotel Excellent Era had also chosen. As he left the hotel arranged by the alliance, Cao Guangqing saw two City H reporters, who had been assigned to the Challenger League, standing in front of the main entrance, looking around with eager anticipation. Cao Guangqing knew what they were waiting for, laughing internally. However, as he passed them, he was still recognized by his two colleagues, who hurried over to stop him. "Hey, reporter Cao, when did you get here?" The two approached hastily upon seeing Cao Guangqing. Cao Guangqing might not have published any good pieces recently, but he hadn't fallen to the point where even these two could look down on him. Anyone who was sent to report on the Challenger League wouldn't be an important person from esports home. "Haha, I just got here," Cao Guangqing greeted the two with a smile. "We don't really have anything to do right now, so how about we interview you, since you're a big shot reporter," one the two reporters suggested jokingly. "How could you have nothing to do? Aren't there many teams that have already arrived?" Cao Guangqing pointed towards the registration area inside. "These teams?" The two turned to look, their disdain evident. They obviously didn't think these grassroots teams were worthy of their attention. "What's there to ask these teams? Hey, let me ask you, when is Team Excellent Era coming, huh?" one of the two asked. Cao Guangqing smiled. How could he not know who these two were trying to do? These two had the same idea as he did. To be blunt, they wanted to take this chance to grab the high-quality resource that was Excellent Era. After all, what everyone paid attention to wasn't the news from the Challenger League, but rather the future of Excellent Era. This was a great source and Cao Guangqing was in no way willing to hand it to someone else. After having to hold it in for a year, he wouldn't give anyone else even half a chance. Excellent Era? I'm not sure either. I looked around for them, but I haven't seen them either. They probably didn't come yet. Okay, I have to go because I have some business to attend to. I'll catch you later, bye. Cao Guangqing waved and bid farewell. Yet these two reporters had their eyes set on Cao Guangqing's luggage. For convenience, reporters like them would usually just live in the hotels that the alliance arranged for the teams, but Cao Guangcheng seemed to be leaving for a different place to stay if his luggage had anything to say. The observation abilities of reporters were rather good. The two exchanged a glance and, seeing Cao Guangcheng hail a taxi, hurried after him and hailed their own taxi to follow. Inside the hotel, the registration continued neatly. Happy's members finished their registration and subsequently obtained the key to their assigned rooms. Chong Xian followed and even offered to carry the ladies' bags. "Hey, little Chong is pretty strong, huh? Here, try mine." Seeing this, Steamed Bun gave his luggage to Chong Xian as well. Chong Xian had already taken Tang Ru and Chen Guo's bags. Their journey this time was to another city and it was for a month. Their luggage was far more terrifying than a guy's. Chong Xian had taken both of their bags, already reaching his limits. Now with Steamed Bun shoving another bag at him, he immediately turned to stone. The group went upstairs as they laughed and joked amongst themselves. The rooms were all standard 2-bed rooms. Happy had 11 members, so they were arranged more or less the same way as they were back home. Yi Shu and Wei Chen shared a room, Chen Guo and Tang Ru shared a room, Steamed Bun and Luo Ji, Chao Yifan and Wen Yi. Sun Jeping had only just joined, and ended up rooming with Wu Chen. The only one to experience the pleasure of having a room to themselves was, naturally, Mo Fan, who didn't interact with anyone else. Being a hotel arranged by the Alliance, it wouldn't be far from the stadium, and in addition, it had another important feature, training grounds. It was unimaginable to not have training for an upcoming pro competition, so the Alliance would always arrange for training grounds for the Challenger League teams. After settling in, Happy found the staff manning the registration and asked about the training grounds. As expected, there were immediately people there to show them the way. The training grounds that the Alliance had arranged for them lifted Yi Shu and Co.'s spirits. This environment was all too familiar, it was the hotel's internet cafe. The reason for the Alliance choosing a hotel with average commodities was clear now. They had probably chosen the hotel for the reason that it came with an internet cafe. The hotel internet cafe had since become closed to the public and became the Challenger League's exclusive training grounds. The interior had also been arranged as well so that each team had their own area, separated by temporary partitions. By the time Happy got there, there were already teams practicing inside. The Alliance wouldn't bother with if they were using these computers to train or to do something else. During the Challenger League, they were free to use the area they were assigned as they pleased. Team Happy's 11 members formed a massive group relative to the other teams in the Challenger League and was assigned the innermost corner of the internet cafe. As an experienced internet cafe owner, Chen Guo gave the environment and equipment of the internet cafe high praise. After they took a small tour and familiarized themselves with the place a little, Happy's members weren't impatient to start using the equipment like some of the other teams. Having traveled quite a ways over, it was important for them to rest first. After their small tour, Happy's members returned to their rooms to rest. At the same time, Team Excellent Era had checked into their own hotel upon arriving, but they still had to register. The Alliance couldn't arrange for a registration spot in their hotel just for them, so after settling in, they still had to go to the hotel arranged by the Alliance. Yet as Excellent Era made their way into the lobby, 3 people immediately stepped forth to meet them. Reporters. Excellent Era's members immediately knew this, seeing the manner of the 3. As a powerhouse team, Excellent Era had no need to pander to the media outlets. Usually, reporters would be falling over themselves to get and interview them. There was no need for them to pay reporters to come, unless they needed the media to express a certain voice to the public, of course. Though the season had caused them to lose their face, they had never lost their status as a powerhouse. However, thinking of all the ruckus in the past when they entered the playoffs, 3 reporters seemed very bare. Among the 3 reporters, Cao Guangcheng was a familiar face. They had been in contact before arriving, and if it wasn't for how there was some business they couldn't manage to adjust around, Cao Guangcheng would have definitely departed on the same flight as Excellent Era. He was the team reporter, after all, so he would usually stick close like that. As for the other 2, Excellent Era's gaze fell to them. The 2 ignored the fire that seemed to spit from Cao Guangcheng's eyes and stepped forward to introduce themselves. They were also from Esports Home? Excellent Era was stunned. However, as the club manager, Kui Lee had a lot of experience dealing with reporters outside of player interviews. He was pretty clear on the going-ons about the media. Seeing Cao Guangcheng's pissed-off expression, he immediately realized what was happening. They were fighting amongst themselves. This sort of thing would be something that would make Cao Guangcheng depressed, but not excellent era. They wouldn't neglect any side. Cao Guangcheng was seething. He had never thought these two shameless colleagues of his would follow him. These two had gotten off their taxi right after he had gotten off his. When they came to greet him with faces of triumph, he felt like he had the will to eat them alive. And now, they had engaged excellent era like this right under his nose. During excellent era's peak years, they might even be disdainful of talking with unfamiliar reporters, but had an excellent era fallen, they had to play nice with the media, so they wouldn't give the two the cold shoulder. Cao Guangcheng understood this all too clearly. The two chattered one after the other, engaged in an enthusiastic conversation with excellent era and making Cao Guangcheng seem like a little sidekick. This made his rage flare up further. However, Cao Guangcheng hadn't followed excellent era for so long for nothing. Seeing the two clinging to Kui Lee and chatting, he decided to switch targets to one of the players. Yet as he turned his gaze, he managed to get a glimpse of excellent era's owner, who was standing behind the team, Dao Zhan. Cao Guangcheng was delighted. The owner of a club wasn't a person one could easily get a chance to interview. He was about to approach and engage the other when he suddenly heard the two others suddenly ask Kui Lee, "There's always been rumors that Team Happy was a team created by Yi Chu, but just now, we obtained the finalized name list of registered players, and Team Happy didn't have the name Yi Chu in it." This. What did you say? The other hadn't even finished speaking when Dao Zhan heard, and immediately rushed forward.